And I got some women who were very physically attractive, who were struggling so much with dating. And I got a lot of women who, by definition, would be less physically attractive, who, by following our strategies, were doing much better than the physically attractive women. And then, cut scene 12 years from now, I'm just like, you know what? We don't even that's not even really a topic of conversation with what we do. It's just not, because leading to long-term success, it's not correlative at all. It's just not. Gary, whenever someone becomes single and decides that they want to find love, what is the first thing they decide to work on? What is it?
If I had to say definitely how they look.
Definitely. I'm going shopping. I'm getting my nails done. I'm getting my hair done. I'm going to look up get some better makeup. Everything, like our natural inclination is to focus on our physical looks. And I get that. Like that is our natural impulse. But today, what we're really going to be talking about is the limiting beliefs about physical attraction. And we have a lot of data on this. I mean, we've had a total of 44,000 clients here at Love Strategies. That's a lot of data. And we've had a lot of different types of women and different varying levels of physical attraction, for being frank. And the common thread that we have seen for successful daters is not their physical looks. It's actually something very different. So we want to tackle this limiting belief today for those of you who are getting very focused on that, especially in today's environment of social media. Everything is focused on physicality, and really hopefully build your confidence by the end of this.
Yeah, and I would say, this is a human inclination, right? When we are seeking connection, the first thing someone can know about us without knowing anything at all really about who we are as a person is what we look like. And so men do that. I know guys, when they get single, the first thing, I'm going to hit the gym, going on a diet, paleo, here I come, cutting out alcohol. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to do my cold plunges. I'm going to do my sauna. I'm getting on a regimen. Like everybody does this because we think that physical attraction is the end all be all of relationships and dating.
Right. Well, it's where you get the most instant feedback loop. Like you do get an instant feedback loop. If you, let's say, change all your clothes and, you lose 10 pounds, immediately you do get some, wow, okay, I'm getting a little bit more attention. Things are going a little bit better. But does that correlate with long-term success in relationships? I would argue, no, not necessarily. And I think I don't know if this is in your notes, but I know you've spoken about this before, about the research that shows that physical looks actually does not correlate with long-term success. In fact, it might have a negative correlation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that, being prettier, being more handsome, and that doesn't make you a better relationship partner in the long term. It might make you more desirable in the short term, but not necessarily in the long term. And so what I like about today's podcast, we're going to do something just a little bit different, where rather than just necessarily giving you a bunch of facts and figures and specific strategies, we're going to lead you through a limiting belief, one of the biggest limiting beliefs that we see our clients have, and just kind of show you how Adam and I, as two experts in relationships, think about this. Because, sometimes people say, oh, well, you have to be really good at relationships. All these facts and figures and all that kind of, and it's like, yeah, I do. But like the facts and figures aren't actually what are most helpful. It's how you think about relationship problems that is actually the most beneficial. And so we're going to lead you through this idea of dating success is all about being attractive. Now, it's an easy thing to believe. And it's a thing, it's a statement I think probably most people believe about dating. But one of the things that we know from psychology is people are not very good at knowing what they don't know. And in fact, the less you know about something, in this case, dating, the easier it is for you to feel more confident in your beliefs, right? So someone who doesn't know that much about dating, you say, oh, is dating primarily about physical attraction? They're like, yeah, I'm sure it absolutely is. Definitely. But like Adam and I both would tell you, because we know a lot about this, it's like, is it about physical? It's a little bit about physical attraction. You can't deny that that's not part of it, but it's actually not as big of a issue as you might think. And so, fans of psychology will know that this is the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is essentially the opposite of imposter syndrome. Dunning-Kruger, the less you know about something, the more confident you can be in your conclusions. And so the big problem that people have when they're super confident about things that are complex, or thinking complex things like dating are simple, is you start blaming yourself. Like, why is this so hard? I don't understand. Like, is there something wrong with me? And I literally just last night had a client say, Gary, like, why is this so hard? It's like, what is wrong with me that this is so hard? And it's like, I forget what her name is, but it's like, this is just hard. This is just complicated. And so as you learn that things are more difficult, you start seeing the nuance, but then you actually, as you learn even more, you cross over to, oh my gosh, this isn't impossible. Oh, I see now. Now I can work at this problem strategically.
Yeah. Well, it's like with the Dunning-Kruger, it's like the less you know, the more quickly you are to make statements about yourself. So, or men or anything. So, for example, you go on 3 dates, your first 3 dates ever since you've been divorced, none of them go well. And you say a simple explanation is men don't want commitment nowadays, or I'm not pretty enough, or it's just these basic statements. And of course, the more that you learn and understand the nuance and the strategies and all of the variables involved, suddenly you can actually start really solving for the real thing going on and not these superficial statements and these beliefs. So, yeah, I love that. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and so let's dive in, right? And so the seemingly simple truth, right? In air quotes, truth that people will often believe, this limiting belief, is dating success is all about being good looking.
Right.
And so I just from the start with that statement, just the scientist in me has to just say, is like, what do you mean by success?
Mm-hmm.
Dating success is all about being good looking. And it really depends on what you mean by success. If you mean success as in just hooking up with somebody tonight or this weekend, good looking matters a lot more, right? If that's
Yeah.
what you're just looking for, like a casual fling, something like that, attractiveness matters much, much more. And so maybe you're right. But what I
Mm-hmm.
know, and Adam can back me up on this, is, our clients, people listen to this podcast, it's not about hooking up. It's not about casual flings. What we're looking for and what success means to our listeners is long-term, fulfilling, sustainable relationship with someone that I'm going to share my life with. That's
Right.
success. Now, when that's your measure of success, good looking becomes much less important. And in fact, good looking can actually work against you in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you're going to walk us through four quick reasons why this obvious statement isn't even that simple or true, and that could actually be wrong. Why don't you walk us through a couple of these?
Yeah. And so, not only do we think it's as simple as being all about physical attractiveness, actually being more physically attractive makes dating a lot more difficult. And
Yeah.
so the first reason for that is this just general idea of needles and haystacks, in that if you're super attractive and you're posting an online profile or even just walking around out in the world, you're going to get a lot more attention, and you're going to get
Mm,
broad based attention. Everybody, you're going to get tons of matches on the apps, lots of guys messaging you. And then by having all this noise, all these extra people, it just makes it a lot harder to find the one person or the several people that you're most compatible with.
right. Yeah, you'll get decision fatigue. I mean, if you're getting 100 messages a day, some people might call that a champagne problem. It's a good problem to have, but it's really a problem. I mean, that is something that a lot of our clients will deal with, and trying to weed out the right types of guys is very challenging, or they call it the paradox of choice. The more options you have, the harder it is to make a decision. Like if someone's selling, I think the famous psychological studies, like they're selling jelly at a stand, and if
Mm-hmm.
there's like 12 different flavors of jelly, no one buys the jelly because they're like, well, I don't know. Do I want strawberry? Do I want
Mm-hmm.
blackberry? Do I want rhubarb? I don't know, whatever weird flavors. But just sell strawberry jam. And if you got just strawberry jam, you're like, ooh, that kind of looks good. I want that. So in some ways, having less options actually makes this easier rather than harder.
Right. And if you have all of these guys messaging you and giving you attention, dating's supposed to be fun. And if you
Yeah.
have all this extra attention, what we hear from clients is it becomes like a part-time job, right? You have to
Right.
vet all these options. Are these guys legitimate? Is this person a scam? your efficiency is way down, and there's just opportunity cost in the sense that all the time you're spending trying to figure out which guy is legitimate, which guy isn't, which one's really a good match, which one isn't. It's all time taken away from actually spending time with potentially a guy who's a great match.
Right.
And which is just to say, the second thing that's going on here is that frankly, not all attention is good attention, right?
Mm,
Some of those matches, many of those matches, I would say, are really just interested in you for your physical features. And this
yeah.
goes back to the definition of success. Are you looking for guys who only want to date you because of your physical features? And the answer to that almost invariably is no. That's not what a meaningful connection is about. That's not what you're looking for. And so that can be a really big problem too.
Yeah. Almost being like, if you take it to the extreme, and let's say you're in the top 1% of attractiveness, it almost creates a disconnect to the other human being because it's so distracting, right? Like, and look, being a top 1% good looking person, I think, hey, it's great. Like, hey, if you're there, fine. But I think with dating in particular, it really does not allow you to build emotional attraction on that first date. Because if you are going on a date and you might not have those qualities, people are going to be searching for the attributes within you that are attractive, that are beautiful. And rather than having them just chasing you into the bedroom. So I think it's actually a very interesting reframe for those of you who are finding yourself are finding for those people, so I'm struggling with my words, for those people who are struggling and constantly telling themselves that their looks are what's getting in the way, this is a really, really powerful reframe to say, well, look, the guys that you are going out with are genuine actually about getting to know you on a deeper level.
Yeah, and it goes back to this simple thing is like we think it's true that attraction is what helps. That's the number one thing that helps. And actually, what we're talking about already so far is it actually creates problems and problems
Yeah.
that you're not thinking about. And so, speaking of problems, one of the other big problems that the third thing is, who gets lied to a lot?
Who?
Attractive people.
Hmm.
Attractive people.
Yeah.
Because particularly guys, like the good guys, the bad guys, you know what the bad guys are good at? Telling you what you want to hear, right? The wrong guy is really good at telling you what you want to hear just to get into the bedroom with you, right? And
Right.
so wrong guys, they're not dumb, but they are sneaky. And so if he's motivated by physical things, he's going to be more motivated to lie to you. And then, that leads to things like lies, love bombing, empty promises, all things that no one wants to deal with when they're dating.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does create a number of different problems when you're at that level. And by the way, on both sides, there's good problems and there's bad problems. If you're really attractive, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, this is really depressing because I'm really attractive, that's okay. We can solve for that maybe in a future podcast. For those of you who are struggling with this mindset of, maybe I'm not attractive enough, hopefully this is really helping you and kind of rethinking these things a bit because both have strengths, both have weaknesses.
Yeah, and I think we don't often, and this is the last one. We don't often recognize the set of assumptions that go along with someone being attractive, and
Mhm.
frankly, there's a lot of negative stereotypes, and the research supports all of this. Which is, when you're attractive, people just don't think you're smart. People don't think you've earned your success, and people generally think you're more promiscuous sexually. And so,
Right.
if you're an accomplished, smart, intelligent, accomplished woman who's attractive, that's a huge problem because guys are making assumptions based on your appearance that are completely not true. It's sexist, it's inappropriate, but this is again, it's a problem that you don't necessarily think of. And so as much as, the assumption is attraction solves a bunch of problems, it creates a bunch of other problems too. And that's where understanding more about a topic and the nuances and all the factors that go into it is really important and helpful.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to add a little caveat to what you're saying. And I'm wonder if you agree, but when you say attraction, we're talking physical attraction because
Yes.
there's an entire underbelly to all of this that we're discussing, and that emotional attraction is a very different thing. And
Right.
you can be less physically attractive and very good at building emotional attraction with men through your energy, through your vibe, through your personality, through your connection. So I always separate those two things out. So everything we're talking about is physical attraction right now.
Yeah, which actually really nicely sets up a couple pieces of research that I did want to share, which is one is some of my own research, which shows exactly what you're just talking about, which is if you have a really good personality, it actually makes you appear more physically attractive. And so, personality does go a long way. Like you can just it's not working out, it's not anything physical. You just by having a better personality, people perceive you as physically more appealing. Um,
Hmm.
there's another piece of research that shows when people are friends first, basically when they establish emotional intimacy first, those couples are less matched on physical attractiveness. So it means one person's a little bit more physically attractive, one person's a little less physically attractive, which actually is a good thing because it shows that they're not basing their pairing on just physical features. So it's going deeper than that. And so that's actually, when we talk about that relationship that's going to last 10, 20, 30 years, it's going to be about that emotional intimacy, not about the physical features. Right. And so
That's
that's important to match that way.
That's really interesting. I think back to one of my first serious relationships, and we were friends for a while before then. And physically, she actually just wasn't really my type, honestly. Like, but we dated for a long time,
Mhm.
and it was awesome. Like, it was the second best relationship to what I have with Jessica, honestly.
Yeah.
And where I feel like I struck gold. But like with her, we were buddies first for a really long time, and then it grew into something. And I think that those can be incredibly, incredibly powerful relationships. And that's where you can really date out of your league in many ways. I think, not to say that I was out of her league in any sense, but I'm saying for everyone listening, I certainly wasn't.
Well, and it just goes to show, what the best relationships are built on, and it's built on that emotional stuff. And so, that just kind of underscores this whole thing about, what a limiting belief it is to just believe it's all about physical attractiveness because it's not. It's actually very little about physical attractiveness. It's much more about that emotional connection.
Right.
And then, so, the one other thing I have on here that I just kind of want to talk about really very quickly because we don't want to spend too much time on this is just a couple of just simple strategies to make some of this a little bit easier, right? And so we said one of the big problems that attractive people have is they just have too many matches, tons and tons of matches. And so this is true for everybody in the sense that when you're trying in your online dating profile, all that kind of stuff, the fewer matches you have, the better. You want quality over quantity. You want to spend a lot of time disqualifying guys who frankly will never be compatible with. And so set up your profile in a way, and again, we don't have time to get into all the ways to do that, but you really want to set, and there's a way to do this though, like set up your profile in a way that actually cuts down, it filters out a bunch of the guys who are never going to really have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, quality overrides quantity to a degree. I mean, if you're not getting any matches, that's a different story. We want to have there's a middle ground here for sure, but I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not helpful. Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I put my profile up and I had 50 people message me in the first weekend. You're not filtering enough. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, there's a middle ground. And so it's another one of those assumptions. People assume more quantity is always good, and it just isn't. And so, I, I guess I like this topic, and I like this because I think so often people think relationships are too simple and they're common sense. But I think when you kind of see how we think about something that seems on the surface quite obvious, oh, dating success is about being physically attractive. When you actually know a little bit more about relationships, you see that things aren't as simple as they seem, and then it gives you a clearer path forward in terms of how to navigate the dating scene.
Yeah. And I feel like I realized this very quickly when I switched from working with men to women, because when I worked with men, I always had an intuition from my own even personal experiences that physical attraction is not the magic bullet. There are a lot of physically attractive men who actually don't do very well with women, and there's a lot of unattractive men who can really chat up a woman and do really well. And so I always had that intuition with men, and I saw it with my own eyes when I would coach men. And I used to be 45 pounds heavier than I am today, and I developed a lot of skills when it came to dating. And I was like, oh, that's actually not the X factor. With women, then I switched over to women about 12 years ago at this point. And I wasn't sure. I just wasn't sure because I'm like, men are very superficial. I kind of had a lot of these limiting beliefs myself. And then I realized as I brought in a lot of clients very quickly, because we were getting like a lot of press at the time, and Glamour did like a feature on us. It was crazy. And I got some women who were very physically attractive who were struggling so much with dating. And I got a lot of women who, by definition, would be less physically attractive, who, by following our strategies, were doing much better than the physically attractive women. And then, cut scene 12 years from now, I'm just like, you know what? We don't even that's not even really a topic of conversation with what we do. It's just not, because leading to long-term success, it's not correlative at all. It's just not. And it's pretty wild to see that. And so I'm so happy you brought this topic to the discussion today, because I just think it's something that really holds so many women back from actually taking those first steps forward to finding love and doing it with confidence.
Yeah, and I totally agree. It's exactly what you just said, which is we actually don't spend that much time talking about this, but what we do talk about, which I think is the thing that's actually much more important, is that feeling of, so it's not about physical attractiveness, it's about your feeling of feeling empowered, confident, and comfortable.
Yeah.
And that, when you talk about what is actually attractive to men, it's those three things.
Yeah. And being able to look in the mirror and be like, I'm proud of myself. I look
Yeah.
good. I feel good. Like your perspective, the perspective you have towards yourself is the same perspective men will have towards you. I've gone
Exactly.
out with a lot of women who I would say are on the physical attraction level higher, and they have a lot of insecurities. I mean, they're like pointing out the smallest little things, like a mole on their leg, and talking about how that's the worst thing in the world. I'm like, what are we talking about here? And then I when I was dating, would go out with a woman who was maybe physically less attractive than in comparison, but would just have that swagger, look in the mirror and be like, you're amazing. You're great. And she'd actually believe it. And it would just like radiate through everything. And I found that massively attractive.
Mhm.
So that's the area to work on. That's the thing to think about, and realize that ultimately this is not the most important thing at all. It's really learning the right strategies, feeling empowered through the process. And hopefully you all got a lot out of this. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.